Well, here we are. Shit has hit the fan. I've pretty much bugged in now. As of Monday, because I've got enough money saved and food stored up to last me a couple of months. So I mean, it's going to be tight. I'm not going to get no luxuries or anything. But you know, I've made these preparations all these years. If now's not the time to use them, I don't know when is. So I'm pretty much socially isolating now, except for my parents. Pretty much anyone else, I'm just trying to avoid completely. And it's not partly because, you know, I had pneumonia a year or so back, and your lungs failing you is frightening, and I don't want to risk going through that again. And I have psoriasis, which is kind of connected with your immune responses, so I don't know if that would put me at an at-risk group or not really, but I still wouldn't want to chance it either way. And it's not just me I've got to worry about. You know, if I were to get it and not realise and then give it to my parents, who are both over 65, both got minor but still underlying health conditions, you know, and one of them died, God, just couldn't be unbearable, wouldn't it? So yeah, I'm not taking any chances with this, which is good news for you guys, because it means I can have lots of free time to do videos, if I do say so myself. But it's crazy it's gone this far. I can't believe the governments of the world let it escalate like this when we had fair warning. They were so worried about the economy and how that was going to be affected. And I understand it's not just a case of, oh, they value money over people, because money is people's lives. You know, people need the economy to live, to buy food and pay for their accommodation and stuff. I understand that, but it was inevitable that the economy was going to take a hit. It was inevitable that travel was going to take a hit. They might as well have just, you know, like ripping a plaster off quickly. They should have just hit this thing hard and fast, stopped transport for a while, at least limited it for God's sake, and taken that hit to the economy, and maybe we could have got over this quicker and the economy could have got back on its feet quicker. If the virus wasn't able to spread as much, not reproduce as much, maybe it would have died out a bit. I don't know, I'm not an expert on the economy or viruses, but I just think at least that would have saved potentially a lot of people's lives. Now the economy is going to take a long drawn out hit, and along the way lots of people are going to die. I mean, thousands upon thousands they're estimating, which is just terrifying. And it seems at the minute that about 50% of the country in England are panicking and, you know, sort of panic buying and all this, and then none of the other 50% don't seem to really care too much. There were still, this weekend just gone, people were still going out to music gigs and marathons and races and things, and it just blew my mind, really. I think in a couple of weeks' time, 2 or 3 weeks' time, we're going to see an explosion in cases from this weekend that's just gone by, where everyone was just going out still in huge gatherings. And it's all well and good thinking, oh well, I'm young, I'm in the safe zone, I'll be fine. But younger people have been dying in the world, not in England yet, but people in their 30s and 40s at least. I'm not sure about 20s and under, but people in their 30s and 40s have died of this. They don't even seem to have underlying health conditions. You just don't know. It's not worth taking the chance. And you know, you don't, for all you know, you have got an underlying health condition that you're not even aware of. And on top of that, as I sort of said earlier, imagine giving it to your parents or your grandparents and they died just because you wanted to go out for a jolly up. I mean, I respect a rebellious mindset normally. I don't like having too many rules and restrictions put on me, but when there's a global crisis, you've got to put your ego aside and just follow the damn rules, for God's sake, and common sense. I mean, does it really hurt to have a year not going to restaurants and bars and things? In some ways, a year is a long time. A year is a long time when it's, God knows how many people are going to die between now and when they get a vaccine, which is probably going to be in about a year. But on another hand, I think a year isn't, I mean, a year can whiz by. A year isn't that long in the grand scheme of things. As long as you're still alive, you've probably got decades ahead of you. So 1 year isn't going to hurt to have out from doing these things. And also, even if the virus itself doesn't affect your health, if the NHS is overwhelmed with cases, and then you're in a car accident or something, or you have a difficult labour and you need medical care and you can't get it because all the doctors and all the beds are taken up, and someone who could have been saved from that car accident dies, a mother giving birth dies, or her baby dies because of complications that could have been dealt with if the NHS wasn't swamped. So this thing, it will potentially affect all of us in terms of health if we're not careful. You know, if you're in an accident or something, or have some other health scare, and the NHS can't handle it all. So it's not as simple as just thinking, oh well, I'm young and fit and I'll be fine. And when it comes to panic buying, I mean, I guess it's easy for me to say this because I've got enough stocks that I can just sit back and say, fill your boots. But I'd rather people panic buy and stock up and stockpile than to sort of turn a blind eye to this and not take it seriously. You know, when people are scared, they act. When people aren't scared, or they're burying their head in the sand, it leads to inaction. And there's been enough inaction with this thing as it is, with the government's reluctant to do anything too full on. And I think part of that is because they're worried that if they were to go hard and fast on this thing a few weeks ago, everyone would be like, oh well, nothing's happening, so what's the point in this is silly. For some reason, a lot of people, they almost feel embarrassed or silly to take action until something bad is actually happening. There's not much foresight in people, and we all have to kind of suffer for it. It's just in general in life, you know, there are a lot of silly rules and restrictions, but they're there because of the stupidest people in society that we have to accommodate for, and we all have to kind of suffer for it. And this is one of these situations in the extreme where that's happened now. The whole hand sanitizer thing, even though I understand it, I think a lot of people probably just hear that and think it's some kind of miracle cure and have gone out panic buying it all. And I've got a friend who works in a bank, and she hasn't been able to get hold of hand sanitizer, so she's dealing with constant transactions all day long and not able to clean her hands in between because she can't get hand sanitizer. And yet there are probably a lot of people who have stockpiled this stuff who don't really understand that if you're at home most of the time, you don't really need it. You can just wash your hands with soap and water. The hand sanitizer is for if you're out and about, you know, you're touching door handles or you're at work or whatever, and you need to be able to clean your hands and you can't get access to a sink and soap. So all these people have probably stockpiled it. In 2 or 3 years' time, they'll probably toss it all out in the rubbish because they haven't used it. And then people who actually did need it couldn't get hold of it. And it's all well and good thinking, oh well, I've got enough hand sanitizer to sanitize my hands every 5 minutes. But if everyone else can't do that, and so the virus is spreading and everyone gets it, your chances of getting it are going up. So even from a selfish point of view, it's not really doing you any favours to hog all the hand sanitizer. Because everyone needs to be able to clean their hands to try and stop this thing spreading. If everyone else has got it, chances are you're going to get it no matter how much you sanitize your hands. I also find it strange that the government have been really trying to dissuade people from wearing masks. And their argument always seems to be, well, surgical masks, they stop you from spreading the virus, but they don't stop you from getting the virus. Which is true, you know, surgical masks are designed so the doctors don't put germs on the people they're operating on. But even if so, like, if it stops people spreading the virus, surely that's as good as stopping people from getting the virus. So it still would make sense to me for everyone to be wearing masks. You know, that if you stop it spreading, you stop it catching. So why dissuade that, other than they're worried about doctors and nurses not being able to get hold of the masks? But then there are other masks that will filter out viruses and that. And even the ones that don't quite have the filtration that would give you 100% protection, they can still lower your chances still. You know, there have been experts on there who have said, oh, well, you know, if you haven't got the right mask, it's not going to give you 100% protection. But you know, if it only gives me 50% protection or 20% protection, that's still better than no percent. So I really don't get this trying to dissuade people wearing masks, other than they wanted to try and retain a sense of normality in society as long as possible and stop panic. I don't know. But the only problem with masks is that if it makes you start fiddling around with your face more because you're scratching it because it's uncomfortable and you're moving it around, then you potentially are upping your risks of catching something because you're touching your face more. So you've got to be sensible with them. But I think if I was in a city, going into a busy shop, going on public transport, God forbid, I'd definitely wear one. You know, look silly, be damned. But it's crazy how quickly the world can change in such a short space of time. Even for someone like me, who, you know, I kind of saw that this was a very likely outcome of what was happening, and I've been a prepper for years now, but even still, it's a hell of a shock when you see how quickly it all falls apart. I mean, it's not far off a goddamn zombie movie where, you know, everyone wakes up one morning and find that the dead have risen and everything's fallen apart. I mean, it wasn't quite as quickly as that, one day to the next, but it wasn't far off. You know, our society is so fragile, and the economy's tanking now as well. I mean, there's been nothing like this since World War II, really, that I can think of. And, you know, most people from World War II aren't around anymore, so for most of us, this is the biggest disaster to ever happen. I can't think of anything on a global scale like this. I mean, 9/11 was big, but that was really a one-day disaster, even though it had ripple effects. I'm not trying to downplay it, but there's nothing like this. This is like a world war situation, but we're at war against a virus, you know, this sort of unseen enemy. It could be anywhere. And I mean, one of the positives you could get out of this is that maybe it'll bring us all together. You know, who cares about political arguments and stuff like that, left wing, right wing, and all that, when we're all facing the same threat. Maybe it'll unite us all in that sense, kind of like an alien invasion. To be like, there is a sense of it, a bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, with this sense of paranoia when you're out, of like, who could have it, who could be infected, who could be one of them. I watched the 50s and the 70s Invasion of the Body Snatchers back in January, actually, so I've just got that on the brain, I guess. Both really good films. But I've noticed that a lot of people, they almost seem more afraid of their own company than of the virus. Now there's quarantines in place in other parts of the world. In England, the government are really dithering on it. They're kind of, oh, well, if you wouldn't mind awfully just maybe staying at home and self-isolating, and maybe in a few days we might possibly ask the over 70s if they don't mind terribly just staying at home. It's like, for God's sake, it's dithering around. But yeah, a lot of people seem really afraid of having to be in their own company. And I think another positive that could come from this is that it might teach people to enjoy their own company more. I think it would do a lot of us good, a lot of people good, to just get away from the rat race, away from constant social gatherings even, and everything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think a lot of people, I've known so many people who just cannot stand their own company. They just can't bear it. So I think this might be a good time for people to just reset and just be in your own company and spend time with close family, you know, read a book, play board games, I don't know, meditate, whatever. Because the thing is, as long as the power in the internet is still on, there's no reason for anyone to be lonely or bored at home, really. You know, you've got instant communication with pretty much anyone in the whole world through the internet or your phone. You've got every TV show, movie, piece of music ever made almost at your fingertips. So, you know, it's not that bad. It's not like the last time there was a huge event like this was World War II, and everyone, or a hell of a lot of people, were forced to go off to war, risking their lives fighting and killing. Whereas, you know, and there's a meme going around at the minute that we're all just being asked to sit on our asses and watch Netflix for a few months or a year. You know, it's not that bad to save possibly thousands of lives. You know, it's not much to ask, I don't think. But as part of the social isolating is that I'm now not going to the gym, which is a challenge to keep fit at home, because I've got minimal equipment there. But it's important to keep fit, because exercise does help your immune system, as well as a healthy diet, you know, loads of fruit and veg in that. Keeping fit as well, and I think especially keeping your lungs strong, because this is something that can attack your lungs. It's a good idea to try and keep fit at home as much as you can, and it's something to pass the time if you do get a bit bored. You know, an hour of your day can be set, you know, you can make a little routine for yourself. I might even do a video on just some easy home exercises that I do, because I've been asked quite a few times to do an exercise video, but the gym I went to wouldn't let me film there, because I guess they, you know, you're not allowed to use cameras at all in case you start taking pictures of the girls or something. And doing a video without the equipment at the gym that I normally use would be difficult. But if it's just like a simple one about just really simple exercises that anyone could do at home, maybe, because I've got a few bits of equipment. I've got like a pull-up bar and a curling bar, so maybe I'll throw a bit of that in there as well. But I do think it's important that everyone, if you can, try and keep your fitness up. Just like I say, that will strengthen your immune system, strengthen your lungs. That could be handy. For years now, the world has pretty much turned a blind eye to China and what it gets up to, because they're a big money spinner. You know, they make all our cheap goods for us. With Hollywood, they buy a lot of cinema tickets. You know, there's a lot of money there for Hollywood from China. So all the big businesses, all the governments, they dare not say anything to them. But was it worth it? You know, the money you made off of China, is it gonna make the difference with the money that you're now losing with the economy tanking and all the lives that are being lost? And I'm not knocking the Chinese people in general, it's just the government there, you know. I mean, goddamn, the hygiene standards are piss poor, and in such a large mass of people as well. And it's always been the stereotype that a pandemic would come from China. It's not like we didn't see this coming. It's you know, you look at most pandemic movies and that, and it's always from China and pandemic stories. Crazy. Anyway, if anyone does want me to do a fitness video, you know, leave a comment, and might be something I could do next week or whatever. It is nice being out here. There's this real sense of kind of freedom from it all. You know, you don't have to worry about coming into contact with anyone. You don't have to worry about the surfaces. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there isn't going to be coronavirus all over the logs and the wood out here. So it's nice. Nice and peaceful little escape. I mean, most of my videos are always, you know, when I play out emergency situation, there's always bugging out, because it's a fun video to make, and I think it's more fun for people to watch. But my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth option would always be to bug in. I mean, that's the safest and the best way to go. I mean, bugging out really is last ditch. But I don't really want to go too much into my home preps just for operational security. You know, I don't want to be going, oh, here's everything I've got stored, here's where I keep it all, here are my security measures, come on in. So that's why I don't really do much on home preps other than the garden videos, you know, what fruit and veg I grow. I think this is the result of overpopulation. I mean, whenever anyone has asked me kind of what do you prepare for, my answer has always been overpopulation. That's pretty much the root cause of almost every disaster you can think of befalling. It's just overpopulation. Because there's this theory that we will never reach the space age, you know, that you see in sci-fi films where, you know, we've got colonies on the moon and on Mars and all this, and we're traveling the stars. There's a theory that we'll never actually get to that point, because our population grows quicker than our technologies and medicines. So there will always be some kind of disaster brought on by overpopulation that will set us back from ever getting to that point with technology where we could colonize other worlds and things, which would help with the overpopulation problem, obviously, because then, you know, people can start living on other planets. But yeah, we'll probably never get there, which is kind of sad to think about, because it was always cool when you're a kid thinking of, you know, in the future we'll all have like hover cars and shit. But yeah, I can believe that. That sounds like a sound theory. I think there will always be something that sets human society back. So we have to, you know, keep starting again almost. And maybe this is just nature's way of resetting things a bit. But it's just awful to think about, the thousands of lives that are apparently going to be lost through this thing that they're estimating. Is just heartbreaking. And that's the problem with overpopulation, is how do you deal with it? You don't want to start culling off the elderly. So what do? You know, people have less children is the only thing. But then how do you enforce that? You know, you can't tell people not to have kids if they want them. And yeah, so it's kind of a unavoidable problem, really, that I think will always be there no matter what happens. We'll eventually always do it over again. We'll overpopulate. Because I mean, England's nowhere near like China, but I go down some of these new estates that have been built over the last few years, and they just don't value space anymore. I mean, the houses, they're nice houses, it's not that they're grotty estates or anything like that, but everything's just packed in on top of each other. There's no gardens, they might have room to park one car, but I mean, what household has one car nowadays? So the streets are littered with cars parked down them. The streets themselves are too narrow. You can't really get two cars at once down these narrow streets, let alone when there's cars parked along the side. But they just packing them in. It's just awful. But that seems to just be the way people live now. It's either that or you're in a block of flats and apartments. And I'm in sport really, because I grew up in the countryside. I'm just used to having space, having my own space and valuing my own space. That's why I could never live in a city or anything. I like visiting cities. You know, I have a lot of fun visiting cities, but I couldn't live in one. I do love the freedom of living in a rural area. And I don't know if being in a rural area might shelter me from this somewhat as well, because there aren't as many people coming and going. Maybe it won't quite spread to where I am. Anyway, thanks for watching everyone. God, stay safe. Yeah, crazy times.